Mist of Lies by me, Eli. Senator Ainley's team was confused. He couldn't quite place what it was, but staring out at this meeting of a collection of senators talking about a new appropriations bill to potentially boost agriculture subsidies, he couldn't help but feel that something was off. But no one else seemed to notice, least of all the senator leading the meeting. The head of the Agricultural Committee in the Senate was not an incredibly prestigious position, but Senator Chief Palpatine of the Channel sector seemed to wear it as a badge of honor. The team supposed that was because the sector had such little stature in the political world, so being named the head of any committee would seem like a festival being thrown in the honor of the up-and-coming senator. We must ensure that this agricultural bill is not bogged down by the excessive influence of Republic bureaucrats that seems to be plaguing this body more and more these days, Senator Palpatine said, in his usual steady demeanor. My friends, there are worlds like my own who are in urgent need of all this bill has to offer. The 10 or so senators in the room all nodded or made some sort of affirmative noise, which did not surprise Senator Team, as this group of senators were fairly ideologically in line with each other. Then, Senator Team's eyes wandered to his colleague from the ICTA sector, Senator Maxius Delado. The senator was quickly becoming a rising star in the institution, as his homeworld of ICTA, bordering on the mid and outer rim, had become a surprising hotspot in the galactic entertainment industry, making it one of the fastest growing planets within the Republic. As such, Team would think that Senator Delado would be paying more attention in the meeting, but he wasn't. His eyes almost seemed glazed over, almost like he was completely zoned out in the meeting. Senator Palpatine seemed to notice this too. Senator Delado, is everything all right? Palpatine asked. Oh, yes, I apologize, Chief. I was thinking about how to implement an extra clause or so into this bill, Delado responded, as if nothing strange was going on around him. An extra clause? Palpatine inquired. Regarding what? This may sound bizarre, but I received word around a month ago that scientists on ICTA have recently discovered that our crops can grow better by sprinkling a small amount of yenith feed on the soil, Delado answered, almost as if he was testing the waters to see how his statement would go over. I was wondering if we may add a clause that gives a tax credit to those using yenith feed for their soil, as it will be more ecologically friendly for many planets in the Republic. Immediately, many senators, including Team, checked over their data pads for more information about yenith feed. Team recognized very quickly that this would be a difficult proposal. He spoke up to the room. Senator Delado, it seems that the quarter plant is a vital ingredient in this feed, and yet the plant grows on a few select planets throughout the galaxy. Inconvenient planets to get to, at that. Senator Delado looked very ready to answer this potential opposition from his fellow representatives in the Galactic Senate. My aides have compiled a list of the most cost-effective planets to harvest the quarter plants on, and how the Republic would operationalize the growing and harvesting of these plants, as they need very specific planetary conditions to grow. Delado said plainly as he sent the memo prepared by his aides to his colleagues' data pads. A senator from an expansion region world that Senator Team could not quite remember the name of stood up when she got the memo and shouted, Senator Delado, we could not possibly. The galaxy shall suffer if we do not secure the future of the quarter trade, Delado proclaimed unexpectedly. Even he looked surprised at his declaration that almost seemed like it came from a different person. In fact, the outburst from Delado was so sudden that Senator Team could have sworn he saw a puff of green smoke appear around the senator from ICTA. Now, that'd be illogical. It was just a trick of the light, Team told himself. The man was just getting passionate about something he cared about, nothing more than that. I'm so dreadfully sorry. I do not know what came over me, Delado apologized, catching his breath after roaring out that last shout. I think this will greatly help both my people and people on all of your planets. I strongly believe that this clause should be added to our bill. There, Senator Delado, Palpatine piped up. We all get impassioned at times about the incredibly important work of serving our democracy. I am certain we can find a way, perhaps with some minor adjustments, to get your crucial clause into this bill. I appreciate it very much, Sheev. I know the process of getting any bill to the wider Senate is not easy, to say the least, and I value all of your cooperation, Delado said heartily. He then turned to the group of senators at large. All right, everyone, shall we hold a vote on advancing this bill out of committee? The vote was entirely unceremonious, as this bill had broad support from all sides of the political spectrum. It advanced out of committee with a unanimous vote, and Senator Palpatine would bring it up in the next meeting, the Galactic Senate. Senator Team walked out of the meeting not 15 minutes later, a bit befuddled at the conduct of his colleague from the Ictus sector, but mostly just ready to proceed to his other senatorial duties that he had to attend to that day. As the meeting ended, Senator Sheev Palpatine saw Senator Ainley Team of the Dusting sector approaching him. The senator was sure that his colleague wanted to talk to him about the behavior of their colleague, Senator Delano. In addition to his sudden burst of passion about a seemingly mundane topic, as well as a distinctive puff of green smoke that Senator Palpatine was sure he had seen before, he had thought he had made it clear to his colleagues that he had a particular distaste for his forename. Yet the senator regularly called him Sheev in this meeting with as little care as if he was just discussing the weather. As the three-eyed Gran approached him, he sensed that the other senators in the room had largely forgotten about the incident. Senator Team was obviously the exception. Senator Team, did you have something you wish to discuss with me? Palpatine asked. Yes, Senator Palpatine. Some things about Senator Delano's proposal, of course in relation to his unwarranted clamor today, made little sense to me as I looked over the proposal, Team said timidly. Palpatine waited for a few moments as many of the senators left the room to continue talking somewhat quietly with his colleague from Malastare. I noticed some things as well, Senator Team. This quarter plant seems like a lot of trouble to go through for a fertilizer that doesn't seem to have been tested to the standards that the Republic requires, Palpatine said carefully, not wanting anyone else to catch even a word of what he said. Discreetness was an important quality for a senator to have, as well as for other duties that Sheev Palpatine attended to. And beyond that, most of these worlds that it would be able to be grown on are on the frontier, not properly under the control of the Republic. Who do any of us know who have significant reasons to go to Batu, or Phrygia, or where the largest natural occurrences of it are? Senator Team stopped and shuddered, extremely afraid of what he was about to say next. Dathomir! Surely you don't believe in the old fairy tales about that place, Senator, Palpatine said. The senator from Naboo was starting to put some of these events that, taken separately, may seem unrelated into a larger picture. He needed to quickly redirect Senator Team's attention from that rancid sector. Oh, of course not, Senator Palpatine, but you must admit the mystery surrounding that world will not make it an ideal site for exporting such a key resource, Team said, clearly trying to admit his fear without seeming like a coward to his fellow senator. Then let me tell you assuredly, Senator Team, I have some friends from my youth who I've kept in touch with. They are galactic explorers. They have told me with all but certainty that the only advanced life forms on Dathomir are an offshoot tribe of Zabrak warriors, originated from Eridonia. These Zabraks are primitive and want nothing to do with our republic, so we leave them be. However, to your point, I would not want such a supposedly important resource to constantly have the possibility of being disrupted by tribes of savages, Palpatine stated confidently. Team visibly relaxed upon hearing Palpatine's truth about what was really on Dathomir. I will have my staff further look into logistics of Senator Delano's bill. I promise you this matter will not go unresolved. Now, if I may, I have other duties to attend to, Palpatine said, as he needed to make some important calls in light of his recent discoveries. Of course, Senator Palpatine. As soon as Senator Palpatine, nay, as soon as Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith, got to his office, he used as he masqueraded as the young, ambitious senator from the Chommel sector the next day, he sat down at his desk and made sure the cameras inside his office were disabled. An aide of his alerted him to Senator Delano's arrival at his office. He quickly dismissed the aide, wanting this meeting with Senator Delano to be just the two of them, for privacy's sake. Good morning, Senator. I thought our meeting yesterday was productive. Mine is by howling at the moons. Delado said with a laugh, seeming to take his behavior the previous day in stride as he sat down opposite the senator. Yes, I'm glad you are all right, my friend. Nothing is more important to this institution than the sanity of its members. I did, however, have some questions I might like to ask about the additional clause that caused all the ruckus to begin with yesterday. Palpatine asked, probing the question to see the senator's response. What of it, Senator? Delano asked abruptly. Merely what you know about the main place that the quarter plant can be found, the planet of Dathomir. It's not terribly close to the Ictus system, if my memory serves me. The Dark Lord of the Sith had his suspicions about another player in the game with this bill passing, one that, if left unmonitored, could become a large issue for his plans of galactic domination. Oh, not much, my friend. My ship crashed down on the planet due to a faulty hyperspace jump a few months ago, and while I was waiting for rescue ships, I just admired the beauty of the mostly uninhabited planet. It was actually there that I discovered the miracle of Quarter, Delano said, as if visiting Dathomir was just something that everyone in the galaxy did. Dathomir was a planet that was far out of the way of most citizens of the Republic, and no one would just happen upon the place, even with this so-called crash. Curious, Senator. If you would do me the favor of standing up, I have a theory that I want to test. Delano did so. My friend, Palpatine said with a sigh, since yesterday's meeting I have been concerned for your overall health, so I'm going to perform a test on your sanity that is not known to many, although it is thought of in the scientific community to be extremely effective. Delano nodded, and Palpatine stood up as well. Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith, focused hard on his hatred of the institution of the Senate, of the imbeciles he had to deal with day in and day out in a quest to gain more power, hatred of the hustle and bustle of Coruscant, and mostly hatred of the pathetic Jedi and the so-called peace they claimed to bring to the galaxy. He let loose several torrents of force lightning that hit Senator Delano in seconds and sent him immediately to the floor. Senator Delano writhed on the floor desperately, letting out screams of, "Why?" and "What is this?" and "Stop!" It is not evident if Senator Palpatine of Naboo would have listened to him, but Darth Sidious certainly would not. On and on the lightning came, causing Senator Delano to lie on the floor, unconscious, yet still alive. Suddenly, his body split open, almost as if it was being ripped apart at the seams, and out of it came a green mist, which slowly swirled up until it set into corporeal form. The Dark Lord of the Sith would be surprised at who he saw if he had not become suspicious upon the first citing the word Dathomir in his datapad yesterday.
You were told not to contact me in any way when I left with my prize.
Sidious growled in a rasp that sounded completely unlike the placid tone Senator Palpatine had used just minutes prior. The corporeal mist, which took the form of a woman with a pale face, dressed in a moody brown cloak, spoke in a hushed voice that simultaneously had a bassy echo attached to it. Lord Sidious, how would I have any idea that you were in the employ of the Galactic Senate? Neither myself nor any of my sisters leave the confines of Dathomir very often, let alone into the core of such a place as Coruscant.
Your feeble attempt at an excuse only makes my anger with you stronger. I required your services in various ways long ago. Then you gave me something invaluable 2 years ago. Nothing will convince me to withdraw our exchange, least of all possessing one of the buffoons I have the misfortune of working with regularly. Your pitiful magics were no match for the power of the dark side then, and it remains that way now.
We shall see, said the mist, after which it quickly faded away. Senator Delano suddenly got back up, but he did not seem to be moving normally. No, rather something, or maybe someone, was controlling him from afar. Delano opened his eyes. They swelled with mist as green as the grass on Naboo. Darth Sidious quickly pulled his lightsaber to him with the Force. The body of Senator Delano observed him doing so, outstretched its hand, and pulled another lightsaber that Sidious recognized as his spare to its hand. Both lightsabers ignited, and a heated duel began. Two red lightsaber blades clashed against each other. Although the mist controlling Senator Lotto was powerful in its own right, and more skilled than the Dark Lord may have expected, it became clear after only a brief fight that Sidious outclassed it in every way possible. Sidious saw the wild and broad motions that Senator Delato's body performed with his spare lightsaber and quickly surmised a potential opening. He butted his head against Senator Delato's, knocking the possessed senator's body to the ground. This took the mist aback, and as it took a second to recover, Sidious pulled his spare lightsaber out of the possessed senator's hand and into his own with the force. He pointed both ignited crimson sabers at the possessed senator's throat. The senator's mouth opened, and yet the mist's voice came out of it.
You bastard! I just want to see my son again.
Your son is gone,
Palpatine snarled.
and my assassin is the only thing in his place. An assassin who is completely under my control. All of the memories you made with him, all of the compassion you showed toward him, they are completely gone. Now our little discussion is at an end. Your scheme has been foiled, and you are all out of options. Exit the senator's body, and I guarantee that you will live to next sunrise on Dathomir. This is my only warning.
Sidious growled, with the fury of a dozen rancors.
You win this round, Lord Sidious,
Senator Delato's mouth said.
No, I have already won the next 5, but I would not expect you to have the capacity to see that.
Senator Delato's body slumped down on the floor, the spirit of the other being having left its bond with his own. He lied on the ground for a few moments, then slowly got up. Most in his situation would have had a million questions for the man sitting opposite him. What he saw, the secret identity of a colleague and friend, which son the mist was talking about, what powers were used, why he had several Jedi weapons, all of it. And he would have too if Darth Sidious had not taken control of his mind the moment the spirit left.
Exeus Delano, Sidious growled once again. You will run down to the garage when you will take a spinner and drive it into the wall at such a rate that your body will disintegrate with its destruction. Now go, Senator. You have duties to fulfill.
Senator Delato swiftly walked out of Palpatine's office. The doors closed behind him. Darth Sidious peered at one of the statues in Palpatine's office and tapped on it a few times. From behind him, a trapdoor opened up to a secret room below the main office. Sidious went through the trapdoor and reached for a comm device that he stashed in a drawer in the facility where he dealt with affairs of the more private nature. He pulled out the comm, and soon enough, a voice came through.
Yes?
Sidious described what had just transpired with Senator Delata with the person on the other end. He and the person on the other side held a brief conversation before they came to a plan.
Absolutely, Lord Sidious. I will go to Dathomir to deal with the witch and her insolence,
was how the person Sidious was communicating with ended the call before they hung up. A sleek, Cyanar-made starship gently touched down on the planet of Dathomir. A more uneventful landing than the owner would have thought, but perhaps the witches of Dathomir were not expecting a visit from the Sith this soon after their plot went awry. A tall, imposing figure with pale skin and yellow eyes exited the craft and began to make his way to the village of the Night Sisters on Dathomir. Had anyone else seen who they knew in public to be Higo Damask, Magister of Damask Holdings, they would have been quite befuddled. Of course, Higo Damask was not on the planet Dathomir. Darth Plagueis, Dark Lord of the Sith, and the latest master in the lineage started by the late great Darth Bane, with his rule of 2 was. And why? To clean up a mess made by his apprentice, Darth Sidious. When he had met Chief Palpatine as a boy on Naboo many decades ago, he had sensed a truly genius mind in him, and he still felt the man's potential to be one of the great Sith Lords. What he forgot is that being a Sith requires discipline, something that Lord Sidious was slower to develop than his master would like. Oh, apprentices, Plagueis thought to himself. He had that insolent former Jedi Padawan, what was it, 100 years ago? What a waste he turned out to be, even though he took quite a few Jedi to the grave with him. But that is of no matter now, the matter at hand being his apprentice's sloppiness with the taking of his assassin. Plagueis had visions of an army of undead Night Sisters conquering the galaxy and giving Chancellor Sheev Palpatine the excuse to take over the galaxy and extinguish the loathsome Jedi Order. So he had reasons to keep the witches alive. No, his apprentice's mistake was believing that taking a child forcibly from a powerful tribe would have no unforeseen consequences. Darth Sidious wanted to go to Dathomir badly, to intimidate the Night Sisters himself, but Plagueis insisted he should, mostly to fuel his students' anger about not being able to conduct his plot independently. Also, it had been a while since he had had some fun, had been able to use his glorious powers to the extent he wanted, instead of constantly having to hide behind his mundane financial group. The boy that Sidious took was talented, no doubt, but taking him would not have been the move Plagueis would have made as the apprentice. Darth Sidious was good at many things, but hiding his true feelings from his master was never one of them. Plagueis' apprentice was growing restless about still being the apprentice, easily evidenced by him taking the child, the reason the Mun is here to begin with, as an assassin only. Plagueis saw the double-bladed scarlet lightsaber that Sidious gave the boy. He knew how Bane's rule of two worked. Unfortunately for him, Sidious was not going to have the opportunity to betray his master. Plagueis would make sure of that. However, Plagueis had more important matters to attend to, now, as he strode up to the Night Sister village and waded into their lair. Many Night Sisters glared at him, even making threatening faces at him, but he paid them little mind. Soon they would see exactly the reason he had come all this way himself. He came to an altar where a figure just like his apprentice had described, with pale skin like his own, and a brown robe sat at a table. "Why do you come here? What is your business with the sisters of Dathomir?" the figure asked, though she had a creeping suspicion of the answer already.
"I am here on behalf of my apprentice, Great Mother. He failed to clean up a mess of his own making, and so I am here to be a responsible master, shall we say."
Plagueis uttered, contempt dripping from his voice, contempt for everyone involved in this wretched situation. "It was a simple misunderstanding, my lord. Darth Sidious had not been transparent with me about the use of my son in your majestic plan," the figure said, evidently trying to end the situation as amicably as she could.
"You may dispense with the pleasantries, Mother Talzin. The boy is no longer yours, and I believe my apprentice made that particularly clear. Now I will show you the price that must be paid for defying our, as you say, grand plan,"
Plagueis stated loudly as he outstretched his hand. Like he had taught his apprentice to do many a time, he concentrated on his hatred of the devilish witches that resided on this planet, of the dunderheads he dealt with at Damask Holdings, of his apprentice's constant short-sightedness and ability to give him the legacy he so richly deserved. Talzin put her hand on her head, clearly feeling queasy and unwell, as she collapsed onto the ground beside the altar. She began furiously coughing, louder and louder. Certain organs and other parts of her body were being pulled out of their sockets and stuffed back in, just for the Dark Lord's enjoyment. Blood seeped out of her mouth and head as she winced in excruciating pain. She had to imagine this was something like what that foolish senator had felt when she was possessing him not days earlier. But she was wrong. This was much, much worse. Her joints grew weak, then limp. Her jaw, nose, and chest were bleeding furiously onto the ground. Other Night Sisters tried to rush and either help her or stop the Dark Lord of the Sith, but Plagueis pushed them back with the Force near effortlessly. As Talzin drifted in and out of consciousness, Plagueis used the Force to speak to her directly through her mind. This was a new ability that he had tested on his apprentice, and only came about through his research on the behavior of midichlorians. He spoke in a loud, booming voice within Talzin's mind.
"You are to stay away from the machinations of myself, my apprentice, and any colleagues of ours, or what you are feeling right now will feel like a tickle compared to what we are able to do to you. You and your sisters possess knowledge and wisdom, but your millennia of work is nothing next to the power of this hallowed order. My apprentice and I have been able to shape the very fabric of the universe itself, and we will do so again to any who stand in our way. For your own interest, I suggest staying as far away from who you once called your son as possible. I am not going to kill you now, for my associates may have further use for you. However, be warned, Lord Sidious and I would not hesitate to send your august kingdom tumbling into the ground to be neighbors with the mites that live in the boroughs of Dathomir. Nothing can compare in fury to the revenge of the Sith.
After Plagueis finished with his declaration, he left Mother Talzin face down on the ground, waiting for her sisters to doubtlessly perform any of the nonsense rituals that they do to heal her. His business here was finished. When Senator Ainley Team went into the next meeting of the Senate Agricultural Committee to prepare a written statement to be presented in the Galactic Senate session later that day, he instantly noticed the one member of the committee who was absent. He went up to Senator Palpatine, who seemed to be in quite a somber mood, clearly knowing what happened to Senator Delato. "Shall I assume the worst about our friend from Icta?" Team asked his colleague, hoping with everything he had that he was wrong. "Unfortunately, you should. Security footage shows Senator Delato driving a speeder into a wall and perishing soon after. My staff took the liberty of looking into the other uses of the quarter plant, and they happened to find that it was a key ingredient in the recipe for an ale that is growing more and more popular within the Corps. The most likely conclusion to draw is that Senator Delato simply wanted a way to accelerate his developing drinking problem. What a terrible loss. We already lose too many great men to the bottle," Palpatine said, his voice aching. "I've informed the rest of the committee about the cause of Senator Delato's death, and in his memory we have decided to take out the clause he put in to prevent more needless losses like his own. We have also changed the name of the bill to honor our late colleague." "Well, then, that's it," Senator Team thought to himself. "I wish I would have known. Maybe the other senators on the committee could have helped him." Senator Delato had no family of his own, having a few higher-profile romantic partners in the past, but hadn't dated in the last few years. There were few close friends left to mourn him. However, there were thousands of people representing worlds in the Galactic Senate. Team dearly hoped that, when word of the senator's passing spread throughout that day, that, for at least a moment, they could all be united in their grief of a good man who died way too soon. The next day, Senator Sheev Palpatine of Naboo met with noted financier Higo Damask of Damask Holdings out on a public dock minutes away from the Galactic Senate. Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious knew that their public personas had to be seen in public together, so that, if they ever received an unwelcome interruption of their private business, they would have a valid excuse. Palpatine and Damask were having a very mundane conversation about exchanges in the finance sector of the galaxy when they saw two Jedi approaching, obviously coming to the Galactic Senate on diplomatic business. Senator Palpatine recognized the older one, with flowing brown hair and a kempt beard, and beckoned the two of them over to speak with him. "Ah, Master Jin. Your former master always has such great things to say about your accomplishments in the Order," Palpatine spoke flatteringly.
"A pleasure to make your acquaintance again, Senator Palpatine. Ah, yes, I don't believe you've met my Padawan. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi,"
Jin said, gesturing to the boy beside him, a teenager who had a long braid, customary for a Jedi Padawan. "Good to meet you, Senator Palpatine," Kenobi said, though he clearly seemed uncomfortable. Perhaps the boy was still getting used to the diplomatic side of the Jedi Knights. "And lest I forget to introduce you both to my friend, Magister Higo Damask. Higo and I were just discussing some developments on his home planet of Munilist," Palpatine said, gesturing to the tall Mun beside him.
"Damask Holdings, am I correct?"
Jin asked, while extending his hand to Damask, who shook it firmly.
"One and the same, Master Jin. I have also met your master several times. One of the wisest of the Order, and I'm sure that the Jogan does not fall far from the vine."
"So," Damask said, with reverence in his voice, "what brings the two of you to this side of Coruscant today?"
"Unfortunately, a colleague of Senator Palpatine's has committed suicide, and the Council has sent us to investigate," Jin said somberly.
"My Good friend, Senator Delado, yes. I was working on an agricultural subsidies bill the day before it happened, and it was a horrible shock to us all. Did the council receive my staff's report on the suspicion of drunken behavior's involvement? Palpatine asked gravely. Yes, Senator. And well, the council believes your staff is almost certainly correct. You can never be too certain, Jin replied, visibly annoyed because he too believes the follow-up investigation to be a waste of time. It would be such a comfort if a further answer was revealed behind my dear colleague's end. I appreciate your efforts, Master Jedi, Palpatine replied gratefully. Although, after your investigation is through, Magister Damask was informing me earlier today of some new efforts by the Trade Federation to bolster their already concerning armada. Perhaps the Jedi Council should launch an investigation there as well. Palpatine put the suggestion out there. This was the ultimate Sith strategy. Direct the Jedi from one problem you're making to the next without them having any clue. Sidious could feel how impressed Plagueis was with him, even if the Dark Lord would never admit it. Federation activity. Rest assured, the Jedi will act on this at once, Senator, Jin said. Sidious could sense an increasing amount of concern well in the Jedi as Jin and Kenobi bade farewell to Palpatine and Damask and headed towards the Senate building. Look at the Jedi, wandering along with not an idea of what we have planned, Plagueis said, staring off into the distance.
They are not the only ones who are oblivious to certain plans,
Sidious said to himself as he smirked wickedly, with mirthful glee in his eyes.